Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. We're exploring the Chinese EV industry now and researching how much threat they may pose to Tesla or even the legacy autos, and the EV industry in general. So far, we've uncovered that the US may not be a particularly easy market for the Chinese. In this video, I wanted to explore CATL. As we know, EVs are all about batteries and battery supply. Therefore, it would seem remiss if we didn't talk about the world's largest battery manufacturer, CATL in China. I don't think CATL gets nearly enough attention. They're not only the largest battery manufacturer as of current, but have aims of growing around 50% a year. CATL are not messing around either. They've recently announced a $9 billion raise in capital to accelerate their production. Look what Tesla did with just $2 billion in China at Giga Shanghai. So imagine what $9 billion just in batteries would create. Well, let's review CATL's targets. They're aiming for 230 gigawatt hours in 2021, 380 gigawatt hours in 2022, 540 in 2023, 830 in 2024, and 1.2 terawatt hours in 2025. Translation in quantities of standard range Model Ys, which we believe to be 60 kilowatt hours battery, is 3.8 million in 2021, 6.3 million in 2022, 9 million in 2023, almost 14 million in 2024, and enough batteries for 20 million standard range Model Ys in 2025. So who are CATL making these batteries for? Well, Tesla first started using CATL's LFP batteries in their standard range Model 3 in China. They were a cost saving compared to the 2170 batteries, and also in more abundant supply. And we're familiar with the term battery constrained, so this move to change from 2170 nickel-based batteries to CATL's FLP iron-based batteries made a lot of sense. Since then, Tesla has also launched the Model Y standard range with LFP batteries in China, which is a really big deal, as their initial standard range first launched in the US was using nickel batteries, and they have thus proven it possible to use LFP in Model Y, which means they do not need to be battery constrained when ramping up Model Y. Tesla are also starting to use LFP batteries in the standard range Model 3 in the US. But CATL sell batteries to many other OEMs, such as BMW, Honda, Stellantis, Volkswagen, Volvo, and some of the other Chinese auto companies. But this is predominantly for batteries for hybrid vehicles, not pure EVs, which use a minimal amount of batteries. And even if they were used in BEVs, well, the supply any of them are reaching is still minimal when relative to the actual battery production CATL are producing. Not to mention these batteries predominantly being LFP batteries. You see, although some other manufacturers do use LFP batteries, well, the problem is LFP batteries only really benefit Tesla when it comes to being a full battery-powered EV compared to just hybrid. This is because Tesla's ingenuity is orders of magnitude higher than the competition's. Due to Tesla's hardware, motors, drivetrain, software, manufacturing, drag coefficient, and everything else, it ends up meaning that due to all these efficiencies, that Tesla can use LFP batteries to power their vehicles and still come out with a decent enough range that consumers will want to buy their cars. The closest manufacturer next would be BYD, who have even gone to the extra effort of making their batteries in-house, a full vertically integrated system to give them the best chance, with the Blade battery system. So how does this compare with Tesla? Well, the standard range Model 3 using LFP batteries gets a range of 262 miles with a 55 kilowatt hour battery pack. The BYD Han, their sedan equivalent, gets a range of 376 miles. Wow, the BYD destroys Tesla. Or does it? Well, this is 262 miles EPA for the Tesla versus 376 miles NEDC for the BYD. To calculate a rough idea of the EPA estimate, you divide the NEDC one by 1.43, which funnily enough also comes in at 262 miles. Wow. So BYD are able to manage to match Tesla on range. But wait, Tesla achieved this with a 55 kilowatt hour battery pack. BYD required an 80 kilowatt hour battery pack. Oh right, so not that close after all. That sure would add a lot of weight to the car, probably affects the handling dramatically, not to mention price. Tesla even use a smaller battery than that for their performance and long-range versions. Okay, so BYD would have been the closest competitor to Tesla for LFP technology, given how vertically integrated they are and how they even produce their own in-house batteries. Yet their range per kilowatt hour comes in at 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, compared with Tesla at 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour. BYD literally use 45% more batteries to reach the same range as Tesla, and that's with BYD's own batteries. Can you imagine what happens when Tesla use their own batteries, and how much more efficient again they'll be? But the other OEMs are not using CATL's batteries, or LFP batteries even, at least no serious ones with any decent range. Instead, the major legacy autos are going in-house because they're copying Tesla's playbook from 2015, which is partner up with a battery company and build a battery factory with them. And also, even if they did want to use CATL's LFP batteries, well, they wouldn't obtain sufficient range. Okay, we've calculated that CATL are going to be producing enough batteries for 20 million cars in 2025. Okay, now not all of them are for EVs. They do have other uses like commercial vehicles and energy storage. But either way, this is a huge amount to be producing. In fact, it's risky business to simply increase supply so dramatically in just the hope that they will sell, because the EV market has increased so much by that time, especially given the fact that these batteries are not sufficient for most EVs and that most OEMs are going in-house anyway. So it leads us to ask the question, why? Why is CATL ramping up so much battery production? Why is CATL raising another $9 billion for future capital growth? Well, I think there is only one obvious answer. They have a customer willing to buy this many batteries from them, with a deal that said customer must buy a certain minimum of the batteries produced. It would be too risky otherwise. But all of CATL's customers are tiny, especially in the quantity that they order, relative to CATL's target numbers, with the exception of one. And yes, you guessed it, it has to be Tesla. There's no other way around it. Even if some of the Chinese EV companies like XPeng said, we want enough batteries for 2 million EVs, please CATL, can you make sure that you can supply that many to us? Well, considering XPeng haven't even delivered 100,000 units in total yet, then I don't think CATL would invest in growth based on XPeng's potential, and XPeng don't have the resources to guarantee any contract. Tesla is the only one who can put their money where their mouth is and say to CATL, yes, we'll take every single battery you can make, guaranteed a minimum of however so many each year. Then CATL can invest in growth, knowing that they can sell each battery they produce. And at the same time, Tesla would have secured as many of these batteries as possible. So in the deal, it would say something like Tesla are a guaranteed 75% of all batteries CATL can produce, or something like that. However, the way the deal is structured, it would mean that Tesla secure a minimum supply and CATL manage to sell every battery they can produce. There is simply no other company in the world that can come close to scaling up the production level of EVs that would match CATL's battery production. None at all. And spoiler alert, there isn't going to be one. Okay, so let's just say even if Tesla only secure 50% of CATL's batteries in 2025, this is conservative here. I would say it's closer to 75% at least. Oh, we're also assuming that CATL do reach their targets too. But if they're slow, then perhaps add an extra year on if it makes you feel more comfortable. Either way, we calculated enough batteries for 20 million EVs by 2025, so half of that is 10 million. Now, even if Tesla used half of these batteries for their energy storage, which by the way would still make a significant amount of money, but let's just focus on what that leaves for auto sales, well, that would obviously mean enough cars for 5 million standard range Model Ys. But this would be in addition to all of Tesla's other suppliers, and Tesla's own in-house batteries too, which could be another 1 terawatt hours, or enough for well over 10 million more cars. Therefore, by 2025, Tesla could be at 15 million cars a year, with significant battery storage being deployed on top of that. The more numbers I've been crunching lately, particularly based on what Cathie Wood is projecting, 10 million autos a year from Tesla, well, that is looking possible by 2025. FYI, that's probably over $100 billion gross profit, perhaps even double that when you include all their other activities, namely FSD and energy, which I believe should be fairly in line with ARC's $3,000 price target. But CATL give us more information than this. Remember, 2022 battery production targets for CATL come in at 6 million EVs. If Tesla took a decent proportion of that, then Berlin and Texas might not be far off full capacity sometime next year for Model Y, if we don't have component issues. I see no point in trying to just sell 500,000 or so long-range and performance Model Ys when they can sell 2 to 3 million standard range. Basically, these CATL numbers might be indicative of what Tesla's production numbers might truly be. If not, who else is going to be buying that many batteries from CATL? Tesla's own in-house 4680 batteries won't reach this sort of capacity in 2022. LG and Panasonic aren't going to make too many investments in more 2170 batteries, with the knowledge the 4680 is superior and going to replace 2170. It has to all come from CATL. The highest added value for CATL's batteries is in EVs. Therefore, the EV industry will pay the highest for the batteries, and Tesla will have the highest capacity to cater to such a supply. The batteries are also of the most value to Tesla, and can thus pay the highest, whilst they're also CATL's biggest customer, so would likely get a discount anyway. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.